My Lords, I thank all of the noble lords who've taken part in this debate and the noble Earl, the Minister, for his typically comprehensive response. And I think it's quite interesting that the noble Earl, the Minister, did very much focus on the issue of fraud and fraudulent transactions. And I'll go back to the words of the noble Lord Howarth of Newport, who referred to what's happening as legalised theft. And none of these amendments actually seek to deal with things that are illegal. It seeks to deal with things that are now an established part of our financialised, privatised system that has all of this simply built in. Now, I thank the noble lady Baroness Brinton particularly, who I think really provided a pre-answer in advance of the noble lords, the Minister's response to Amendment 145 in saying that it would be very difficult to separate out day-to-day operations and debts versus financialised debts. And I think the noble lady Baroness Brinton, in demonstrating what the Charity Commission has done, showed a very effective example of how that can be done and different kinds of debt can be identified. And the noble Lord the Minister did say that, well, in an emergency situation, you might need to create some special new financial structure to deal with the emergency situation. Well, I think we know the practical reality of the financial type structures we're talking about are not created under those situations. They're created in a way to hide where the money's going, to ship the money offshore. And that's not something you would do in a situation where you're simply trying to rescue something. I think the point made by the noble lady Baroness Tyler about the inherent instability really brings home the point that what we're talking about here in terms of care homes is people's homes. And I'm glad to see that noble Lord Kamal is sitting there, because on another discussion I raised with him the fact that people who are forcibly moved when homes are closed, people actually die as a result of that happening. And I hope the noble Lord the Minister has now made himself more aware of that situation and of the risk that that presents to people's lives. I think also the noble lady Baroness Tyler focused on some of the difficulties the National Audit Office has had in scrutinising this whole situation, and highlighted the fact that I was talking about how when the National Audit Office is able to scrutinise situations, all we get is a complaint. And the noble Baroness highlighted how they're not even able to conduct the scrutiny in this sector because of the kind of financialised structures that we have. So I think, my Lords, I'm quite pleased that the noble Earl the Minister finished by noting that I'm likely to come back. He perhaps even invited me to come back on these issues, and that's something that I certainly intend to do. These are very, very complex areas, I acknowledge that. This is really an attempt to take on some extremely well-funded organisations, some extremely well-funded professional groups. And I think it's interesting, just to conclude, that as I did, the noble Lord Howarth of Newport contrasted the Russian kleptocrats we'll be talking about on Wednesday versus what we're talking about here. Of course, it's possible that they're not two groups and there might be some overlap. And I really would invite any investigative journalists listening to have a look in to see where we might be able to see overlap in that. So for the moment, it's my intention to withdraw this amendment, but I don't regard this as in any way dealt with or finalised. I beg leave to withdraw.
Is it your Lordship's pleasure that the amendment be withdrawn? The amendment is by leave withdrawn. Amendments 146, 147, Baroness